This is a strategic blunder. It's put all the terrorists on steroids, and it's really deflated our friends in Israel.
This is a foreign policy disaster. I think it's easy for everybody to recognize that. But importantly, I think this could end up being a case study in a foreign policy graduate program for how not to treat a trusted ally.
In a truly stunning move, President Joe Biden not only reversed his own personal policies that he's been articulating for decades, but he also reversed American policy, well, for over 70 years, and that is our ironclad support of the state of Israel. He has delayed weapons shipments while they are in the middle of an existential war with the terrorists, the very terrorists that not only slaughtered 1,200 of their countrymen, but continue to hold their people hostage and Americans hostage. Lindsay Graham, senator from South Carolina, appeared on Salem News Channel's This Week on the Hill, and here's what he had to say about it.
And after initially denying the reports, the president himself admitting this week that he has been blocking the shipment of much needed munitions to Israel. You see this as a big problem.
Well, just imagine how Sinwar feels right now. The guy's in a tunnel surrounded by Israel, and he's the guy that, executed the plan of October the 7th. He's got to be feeling pretty good. The only reason they're not dancing in Iran is they don't believe in dancing. This is a strategic blunder. It's put all the terrorists on steroids, and it's really deflated our friends in Israel, and it will not stand without pushback. Here's why they need the weapons now. Hezbollah is aimed at 100,000 rockets aimed at Israel. That's a radical Shiite terrorist group bent on the destruction of Israel. Iran, the great Satan, writes on its missiles, death to Israel. Hamas says, I'll do it again, I'll do it again, I'll do it again. Their goal is to destroy all the Jews, not help the Palestinians. They're surrounded on three fronts. On a single day, they were attacked by all three. And our response is we're going to withhold bombs as you try to destroy the last 4 battalions. Now, why is this a problem? Hamas puts command centers under hospitals. They store weapons in schools. They fire rockets behind mosques. They make it hard for Israel not to kill the Palestinian people because they use them as shields, Hamas does. So Israel needs the weapons. This is Pearl Harbor and 9/11 on steroids. October the 7th is for the state of Israel. Their very being is in question. After we were attacked in Pearl Harbor, we fought the Germans and the Japanese, and we dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war because we were a fight for our lives and the future of mankind. Give Israel what they need and give it to them now. What Biden's done is obscene, it's wrong, it's dangerous. It makes the war go on longer. Iran's got to be emboldened. And if I'm Israel, do what you got to do.
Now, Andy, recently, a politician said that it would be unthinkable to cut off military funding to Israel. That politician was Joe Biden. This obviously is a political calculation. How's it sitting with the good members of AMAC?
It doesn't sit well with the members of AMAC. Joe Biden's, this is a foreign policy disaster. I think it's easy for everybody to recognize that. But importantly, I think this could end up being a case study in a foreign policy graduate program for how not to treat a trusted ally. American voters, including AMAC members, recognize this disaster and will remember it in November.
And Akash, this is, again, it's a political calculation, but also strategically, I want to repeat, Hamas is still holding Americans hostage. This undermines any negotiating opportunity or leverage that we have or the state of Israel has to try to release those hostages because you're giving them something without getting anything.
That's right. It makes us look weak on the world stage, but there's a broader lesson here, which is that President Biden has been beholden to radical progressive activists since the day that he became president, and we've seen it unfold in dozens and dozens of issues. The difference is caving to radical progressive activists and college campus agitators on this issue means abandoning an ally, abandoning hostages, and making America and our allies around the world less safe. These are the same people who not only slaughtered 700 Israelis, but after that were chanting death to Israel, death to America. And so Biden caves to radicals over and over again, but this time he's putting American lives at risk and frankly saying that he's done worrying about these hostages, which is shameful and something, to Andy's point, Americans will remember in November. I think the backlash to this goes well beyond many of the other crises that have been raging around this administration.
Yeah, and Sarah, from a comm standpoint, from a messaging standpoint, from a imaging standpoint, this just comes days after we've seen Ivy League campuses and other college campuses taken over by pro-Hamas occupiers. They had to be cleared out by the police. American people supported clearing them out. This looks like Joe Biden is giving them exactly what they wanted.
He's giving them exactly what they wanted. But the funny thing is, if you look at Joe Biden's week, just this week alone, he on Tuesday was giving a speech for Holocaust Remembrance Day and said that we need to just stop all of the anti-Semitism. It's disgusting. It's plaguing our country. But then he withholds the ammunition necessary. So it's really fascinating when you see Lindsay Graham asking the Joint Chiefs of Staff Brown and Lloyd Austin about it this week and asking, would it have been okay for Nagasaki and Hiroshima? I mean, it ended the war. And they said, yeah, it ended the war. So why are you not giving the Israelis what they need to finish the job? They're one of our long-term allies, and we need to get it done. It's making Joe Biden look weaker and weaker and weaker.
That's right. And I don't remember American government or the American president paying heed to those who were concerned about civilian deaths in Iraq or in Afghanistan when we went after Al-Qaeda or when we went after ISIS. You got terrorists, you get the job done. Sarah, let me just quickly follow up because of Lindsey Graham. Again, you're good at working with politicians, communications-wise, language. He always has a good line. You know, they're not dancing in the streets in Iran because they don't believe in dancing. Does he come up with this stuff, or does he have a team of people? What do you think?
I really think it's him. Same with John Kennedy from Louisiana. They're just one-liners. They're smart as all get out, but at the same time, they know what to sell. And the fact that he went on Sinclair and was talking about it, and the fact that we're talking about his one-liners, I mean, it proves that he's just kind of a witty guy.
Yeah, and he's always willing to do an interview if it means he can promote selling more arms overseas. That seems to be what the senators do. Akash, let me swing it back to you because you just said the American people will remember this on Election Day. Obviously, this is political calculation. Conventional wisdom in D.C. is this is about Michigan. This is about a very strong part of the population in the suburbs of Detroit, Dearborn in particular, who are very sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. By accommodating that voting bloc, does President Biden run the additional risk of alienating so many voters who support Israel, Jewish voters in certain states that might actually end up hurting him? Is this a boomerang effect?
It does, but I actually think the premise is a little flawed, Larry, which is that people assume Biden's doing this because he wants to win Dearborn, Michigan, and Michigan's a swing state. He's not doing this, and the people in his staff, his White House, the radical woke activists, they're not doing this because of Dearborn. They're doing it because of their peers, which are the people that Sarah alluded to, those woke radical activists on college campuses. That's who is driving the bus in this administration, driving the bus behind these policy decisions. We see it on economic policy, social policy. We see it over and over and over again. They might think there's a political calculus here for Michigan and Dearborn, places like that. But the real impetus, the real, kind of emphasis behind decisions like this is coming from, frankly, woke activists inside the White House, inside the Democratic Party. But to your point, ultimately what he's doing is alienating large groups of people who have historically been reliable Democratic voters, Jewish voters, Black voters, Hispanic voters, what have you, depending on what the issue is. I think this instance is no different. Biden is not winning over any friends because those people who are pro-Hamas and anti-Israel, you're never going to do enough to really win them over. And in the process, you're alienating people who should be in your voting base. It's a lose-lose, and frankly, he deserves to lose.
Hey, Larry?
On this issue because of these decisions.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I just had a thought. Biden could also be doing this. One element could be he wants to avoid mass violent protests at the DNC convention in Milwaukee. He might be trying to head that off at the pass.
Maybe, but you saw that big light display at George Washington University, and they were calling him, what was it, Bloody Biden or something like that. I mean, that's the thing. He's alienating both sides of it. Mm-hmm. And listen, this is the problem. When you don't actually stand for values and principles that have been your guiding light and moral compass for your political career, and it seems like every move you make is a calculation to just advance your own personal political ambitions, well, then you end up alienating everyone in the long run. And that's really who Joe Biden has always been.